So as a new user of the DJI OSMO Pocket 3, I wanted to share some experience and maybe some tips for new users and also some mistakes we made. Well, at least that was my plan, to share with you the tips during the trip, until I accidentally lost a magnet piece securing my microphone on my clothes. I wasn't sure the audio quality, so I decided not to talk into the camera. Instead, I did a non-talk as requested by my little boy cinematic movie. So I'll invite you to take a look at this very short movie, and in the end of it, I'll share with you my tips.
Mommy, why are you talking?
Run, throw with mommy, run. Well, number one tip or number one lesson learned, obviously, use a microphone as long as you can, especially if you're shooting the vlog, having a lot of talk into the camera when you are outside. You never know whether you're holding the camera, perhaps with your thumb or your hand accidentally blocking the microphone, or it might be windy outside. I have compared the audio quality with or without the microphone. Sometimes even without the microphone can go by, but with the microphone, the audio quality is so much better. Number two tip, use the right shooting mode. If you saw me in my last video, I just recently got this DJI OSMO Pocket 3 and I haven't had the chance to have a filter. So even I shot the movie in an overcast day in the winter, when I used 4K 24 frames per second, the sky or the bright scenes were completely overexposed. So it kind of forced me to do one thing during the movie, use slow-mo. Slow-mo, you have quicker shutter speed, and that allows less light into the camera, so your footage is not so bright or so overexposed. So in terms of slow-mo, I have some tips. If you watch that running scene, I have created several different footages for my little boy from different angles. You can see actually from the side, running alongside with my subject was more impactful. You can also have the subject to run into the frame. The least impactful slow-mo is for the subject to run out of the frame, because your subject is becoming smaller into a little dot in the frame and you just don't see a lot of motion in the footage, and sometimes the footage might look still or boring. So just some tips for creating slow-mo. There's definitely good slow-mo or bad slow-mo. Now let's go to tip number 3. As I already mentioned, shoot in different angles. You don't want to create a long, steady footage on the same scene for the same subject. Try to break it down into small pieces from different angles for the same scene, for the same subject, and the story will be much more interesting. And in post-processing, you can just shorten each frame into a couple seconds maximum, so your viewers are not going to be bored. And in fact, I have tested my little small video with my two boys and see when they're zoning out. And to my surprise, both of them watched all the way to the end. So that's just one tip for you to draw the attention of your viewers of your video. Make sure to have small, quick transitions in your movie instead of having a long scene. Now, tip number 4. Active tracking or not active tracking. Having this active tracking is really, really handy and very useful, especially if you are using this camera to vlog yourself. In terms of creating videos for other people, for other subjects, you don't have to always do active tracking. So active tracking feature will always put your subject locked in the center of the frame, and no matter where they move. But sometimes you do want to have different kind of composition where you want your subject to be in the corner or to be moving out of the scene instead of just always stay right in the middle of the scene, right? So you don't have to always double click on the screen to lock in this active tracking. Now, final tip, use the joystick or not. Obviously, you can push the joystick up and down, left and right to change the composition when you create the videos. Perhaps it's me, just new to this camera. The joystick is pretty sensitive. When I was in the forest, I was trying to show the big scene from the bottom of the tree to all the way to the sky. If I use the joystick, the panning is very quick and it doesn't look very natural. If the joystick is too sensitive, you can always use it in combination with Slowmo to smooth out the transition. Tip number 6, pay attention to the lines, especially if you include horizon into your frame. Make sure the horizon is somewhere in the middle of your frame instead of on the upper or bottom parts. And you can see from my sample videos, the horizon will look warped, curved if you don't put it in the middle of the scene. Same thing as trees. If you put them on the side of your frame, on the left and right hand side, you can see the tree trunk is not straight. This is very normal because the camera's lens is wide angle lens. Wide angle lens creates distortion, especially on the side of the frame. So just bear in mind when you have the lines, horizons, for example, just pay attention where you put it. Okay, so here are my 6 tips. Just a very quick summary one more time. Number 1 tip, use the audio, use the microphone. Number 2, use the correct shooting mode. Tip number 3, shoot in various different angles. Tip number 4, use joystick smartly, especially combining it with Slowmo. Number 5 tip, use active tracking smartly. Don't use it when you don't need to. And last but not least, make sure to put the horizon or the lines somewhere in the middle of your frame so the lines look straight. All right, thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure to like or subscribe if you like it.
You want to say hi?
Hi.